Well, first of all, everyone, thank you very much for joining us this morning. For those of you who don't know who I am Syed Kamall, member of the European Parliament for London, but also one of the Conservative candidates for the Mayor of London. And as you and I know, and I've met a number of you, that tech is incredibly important for London, and the business is growing fast. And when you look at some of the stats for this first time this year, the city's technology startups attracted in excess of $500 million of VC funding in a single quarter. I've seen, I haven't had a conversation with you guys, but also been to visit a lot of people. I'm seeing young kids talk to write codes, adults of every age want to set up a business, and some of you will know that I used to write code myself. I've even impressed some of you with the fact that I used to do machine code. But so on the outside, it looks like we're doing really well. But a lot of people are saying to me, well, actually, Syed, London could be doing even better when it comes to tech. We have huge opportunities. I know there's I heard someone give a speech the other day about fintech, media tech, med tech, green tech, tech, but we're still a long way behind in some other areas. So what I want to know, if I be Mayor of London, or if I remain as MEP for London, what should my top priorities be? What should the next Mayor of London do to help the tech scene? And I've invited a selection of companies and a selection of you to come and join with this hangout to ask them the question. So before we go further, can I ask you all to introduce yourself very briefly from left to right on the screen?
Sure. So I'm Eileen Burridge. I'm a partner at Passion Capital, which is an early stage venture fund. We actually have BBB, or British Business Bank, as our cornerstone on our second fund now. It's all tech, and we do very early stage financing, so we're along with business angels or other early stage funds. Outside of that, in my day job, I'm also on the steering committee for COADEC and support of Guy for what he's doing. And I was recently appointed by the Chancellor and Treasury to be a fintech envoy for the UK. And also this week I had the pleasure of being appointed to the Prime Minister's Business Advisory Group.
Oh, brilliant. Okay.
Sure. Hi, I'm Guy Levin. I run COADEC, the Coalition for a Digital Economy. I used to work in government and then left to go and sort of champion startup policy. So we try and work with digital startups across the UK and policymakers to get better policy for the digital economy. We're set up by tech entrepreneurs to try and be that policy voice for startups. So thank you for asking us to sort of help convene this group and for including us in it.
Great, thanks, Guy. And I see Anthony's joined us. Hi, Anthony. Why don't you briefly introduce yourself?
Okay, so my name's Anthony Impey. I run a business called Optimity, and we are on a mission to fix London's broadband. And we do that by installing small antennas on rooftops, one of which you can see just over my shoulder here. And we install them onto rooftops and replace the need for fitting fibre optics. And so one of the big challenges we see happening across London is this desperate need for superfast connectivity. And nothing there to really fill it. The large network operators are just not stepping up, which is great for organisations like Optimity, but not good for the tech ecosystem as a whole.
Yeah, my name is Emanuel Andjelic. I'm the co-founder of Squirrel. We're a tech startup that's helping people do better with their money. We're helping people budget and save technology. We're a team of 10 at the moment. Earlier this year, we raised just over £1 million in funding.
Great. Okay. Well, look, listen. I've introduced myself. I'm just saying once again, I'm Syed Kamall, one of the MEPs for London, but also one of the prospective mayoral candidates for the Conservative Party. Whatever happens, I want to have a conversation today about what it is that you guys need to make London even more successful in tech. People. We can't rest on our laurels, and I know Anthony, for example, pointed out some of the issues. How do we maintain London as a leader in all the different areas of tech? And so let's start off with a question. Why don't I just ask you some of the biggest problems? Anthony talked about connectivity. What about some of the other problems? And let's see if we can explore each of those in a little bit more detail.
I'll go first, if you like. I think a lot of startups share this. It's acquisition talent. We've got a really thriving startup community here in London, and that's putting a strain on the availability of particularly. So just having the right kind of, I appreciate this isn't necessarily a mayoral thing, but having the right visa work opportunity for.
I think for me, one of the best things politicians and the mayor can do as being a real champion for the sector. And it's a sort of slightly nebulous one. It's not a sort of policy initiative, but it's just being both engaging regularly. So one of the best things that Number 10 have done over the last 5 years is hold regular breakfast and engagement with startups. But also the sort of promotion side, so sort of taking digital companies on trade missions, holding tech events, being sort of engaged and active in the sector is, I think, something that is really sort of leadership and championing the sector, and that's something I think you've already shown sort of lots of interest in, but is something that can make a difference. I think it's partly what explains the sort of cultural shift that's happened over the last few years, where sort of entrepreneurship and digital entrepreneurship in particular are now seen as sort of incredibly valuable, valid things. And obviously that's down to the digital entrepreneurs, but partly I think it is also down to the fact that you've had sort of startup pitching competitions in Number 10, or Boris taking startups on trade missions, and I think it does help shift that culture.
Okay, and Eileen, is there anything you want to add to that at all?
No, I think I was keen to have Guy go first because I anticipated I would echo a lot of what he said, but also what was already mentioned. I think the key issues are related to skills, as you delicately put it, which is, skills, talent, or visas, all-inclusive, and connectivity. I think those are the two big elephants, I guess, in terms of what's really affecting tech and also what the mayor could actually influence. The only other thing I would say in concert with what Guy was saying is, in terms of engagement, what I do think, I forgot to mention, I also am, what is it called? I think tech ambassador for the current mayor of London. But I think what he's done a really good job of doing is working with London and Partners to be his engagement vehicle for tech. And while I think a lot of these bodies can often be noisy or not focused on the right things, I will say that I think over the last few years, London and Partners has focused on what really does make a difference, as Guy was mentioning, with the delegations, with holding roundtables, and with working also, very importantly, with Number 10, with Tech City, and with UKTI. So I actually think that organization has figured it out now. I think it would be a shame if they were to lose momentum. I think they should probably just continue to be empowered to be that for the mayor's office.
Okay, great. So look, we've got three.
Sorry, can I just jump in one other thing? It's specifically on talent. I think there is one of the things that I'm very conscious of is that you've got in the tech community a lot of wealth being generated, and it's not benefiting in many instances local young people. Right. And I think there has to be real emphasis on apprenticeships and how apprenticeships can work better for the tech community, and how the tech community can work better for apprenticeships, and bringing those two communities together. Because at the moment, I don't think there's enough happening in that space at the moment.
Okay. Well, so we've got connectivity, we've got talent in all its various guises, and then we've got sort of champion, actually just being out there championing the tech sector, having roundtables, bringing people together. Can we go back? Can we start off with connectivity? Because look, if I took a market liberal approach, if you like, to this, I'd say, okay, people are feeling let down by BT, they're feeling let down by Virgin, so that offers huge opportunities for a company like yours, Anthony. But but in some ways that's too simplistic, isn't it? I mean, should I be leaving it to, do you face a lot of barriers in trying to fill that gap, in trying to fill that competitive gap?
I think it's very easy to say the problem is at the door of people like BT and Virgin. I think actually the problem is much more complicated than that. Right. And there's a whole range of different stakeholders that are involved in making connectivity in London easier, ranging from TfL through to landlords, through to local authorities. And I think City Hall has done a good job to start that process off of linking together those different stakeholders. But more has got to be done. We've got a project in Hackney Wick at the moment, and we wherever we can, we'll install our antennas onto rooftops. But where we can't, where the rooftop's not available, or the building's too low down, we'll install fibre optic into the building. And we've got a building in Hackney Wick where we've been told by TfL that we can't dig the road up for fibre for 3 months because of their processes of closing part of the road, and those kind of timescales are just not tenable for the business community at large, but particularly for tech businesses that are having to move very, very quickly. and 3 months, 6 months to have fibre optic installed is just not right.
Anthony, can you just tell me, just from my understanding? I mean, I did a degree in electronic engineering, so I did all this sort of telecoms and propagation, and so I don't want to go into too much detail, Maxwell's equations and all that sort of stuff. But what are the antennae there for? I mean, are they the sort of what we call the last mile, or where are they connecting to?
Yeah, I mean, it's the last mile that's the challenge across the board. There's in fact in London we've got some phenomenal connectivity, partly because of the use of connectivity by the city. So actually we've got lots and lots of bandwidth here. It's actually getting the last mile that's the issue. So you've got an area like Shoreditch, which is sort of half a mile from the city, yes. and yet it's that half mile that's causing the issue in so many instances. And actually all our technology does is exactly that. It links buildings in that last mile connection. We're using, not to get too technical, but we're using 60 to 80 gigahertz part of the radio spectrum, which essentially mimics what fibre optic does. So it's exactly the same services, the same speeds as fibre optic, but it's the last mile that's a challenge. And coming back to the challenges of working with TfL, the thing that they're contending with is that traffic density is so high in London. It's actually very difficult to just close a road for a day without causing corresponding traffic chaos. So the problem is not just BT and Virgin not stepping up to the mark. I think the problem is all these different stakeholders working better together. I think there's an index that the City Hall has launched that grades buildings according to the quality of connectivity, and I think that will help. That will help the market drive some of these changes, because I think the moment people don't move into a property because it doesn't have fast enough connectivity, it will force landlords to actually plan better and have connectivity in place before a tenant moves in. I heard a story of the London Symphony Orchestra, who moved into, this is a few years ago, who moved into Epworth Street, just down the road in Shoreditch a few years ago, and they couldn't use the building. They'd signed the lease, they couldn't use the building because they couldn't get a connection into the building fast enough. And that story is happening across all businesses, but particularly tech businesses at the moment.
And when roads are being dug up, because we've dealt with this issue, a number of other issues. I mean, I know, for example, there was talk about the different authorities that dig up a road to coordinate, so we avoid a situation. I know that's done better now. So, for example, Thames Water digs it up, the road opens again, then BT dig it up, and then Virgin want it, and then the local electricity company want it, and actually there's better coordination. But when they dig it up, is it purely to lay the cable, or actually are we doing more ducting now? So future-proofing. So actually we've got more ducting for future connectivity.
There's a bit of so I'd say there's a bit of additional ducting being installed. That's not really the challenge. The big challenge is damage ducting, because actually a lot of the services are being damaged just by the weight of traffic on the road. So there's lots of remedial work that ends up being done. And just cutting a fibre from the middle of the road to a particular building can cause all sorts of problems. If it's on a red route, you can wait 6 months. It's as simple as that. So I think and I think local authorities, TfL, landlords, and telecoms operators could work better together than actually what's happening at the moment, which is a relatively uncooperative. All parties are relatively uncooperative in activity installed.
So basically, need someone to sort of bang heads together, really, and say, "Come on, guys, this is a problem. Now, how do we all get together rather than blaming each other? I don't want to hear whose fault it is and finger pointing. How can we all come together and try and solve this particular problem?"
Exactly.
Brilliant. Okay. All right. Anyone else want to add to connectivity, or should we move on to the talent issue? And there's a whole range of issues to cover in talent. Let's look at talent then. There are a number of things that a mayor can do and things that he or she can lobby for. Clearly, the issue is of people outside the EU. We've got no problem attracting. Well, I think no problem. it's relatively easy to attract people from inside the EU in terms of freedom of movement, but in terms of visas for non-EU, is that still a problem? And the high-skilled migrants program and all that sort of stuff, is that still a barrier for you guys? Or actually, does the government? When I speak to people in government, I get the sense that they understand that. But is that being fed through, or is it just is it just nice words that they seem to understand, but actually not doing anything about it? What's your view?
I'll just chip in briefly. I think there's a fear of kind of trying to tackle the system, the red tape, the bureaucracy, and there's this kind of burden of proof that's required to sort of show that you haven't been able to find the talent internally. I think when you're hiring a tech team and you find someone amazing, someone really good, you kind of don't want to start saying, oh, could we find someone else? You just want to hire that person. And I think companies in the Valley probably do that, and that could potentially hold us back.
But when you do that, I mean, have you ever said, have you ever been challenged to say, well, actually, I found someone, this fantastic person in, I don't know, India, China, wherever, and someone said to you, well, actually, make the case to me that you can't find someone in Britain or in the EU to do this. Have you actually been directly challenged in that way?
We've been approached by some great talent, and we've kind of just thought at just pursuing the conversation just because it's not worth the time or the hassle. But I think particularly, I mean, there's some real problem areas, particular programming skill sets. Or, for example, I don't know, we're feeling the pinch with designers, and I've spoken to lots of tech companies who are struggling to find really top quality design talent, and those are the kind of things that we would probably want to go further afield for if the opportunity, if the system was easier to navigate.
Okay, so we need, and I mean, anyone who's spoken to government about this is, I know a number of you have. What response do you get when you speak to the immigration minister or the Home Office minister or whatever?
I think the challenge here is that London, and certainly all of us on this call, we genuinely appreciate the diversity of skills that are available today from around the world and not just within the EU.
Yeah.
I think what's difficult is that there is a different sense that probably affects the mass market or kind of the country overall, as was evidenced in a lot of the pre-election, the general election conversations, and even since then. And so I think the challenge is, I think the challenge we face is to try and help amplify specific use cases of whether they're particular roles or as narrow as we can get about examples of where certain skills really aren't going to be coming through our domestic pipeline anytime soon. So we might have to be creative about that, or maybe provide on exception basis, certain types of pieces. I think the current programs have been sufficient. They can be improved. But what is unnerving and disappointing is that there are even conversations about taking some of those away, for example. So the concern for us as an industry is that we might be taking steps backwards instead of forwards. And so I think we need to continue to talk about really specific examples of how that affects growth and scale and value creation in London.
Okay, I mean, it is a political issue, as you can imagine, and I think one of the problems actually is because I think the government has seen numbers from the EU rise and actually beyond all predictions, and they want to respond to concerns over migration. The problem is actually the obvious target is non-EU migration. And that's actually one of the sort of implications of being members of the EU. I mean, whichever way one views that debate. But actually, I think the point you make about how we've got to make the case, and it's not only you guys. I think we need more politicians who champion migration, the positive side of migration. Not necessarily say blanket migration, but actually where there are skill shortages, how do we fill those skill shortages? Guy, you want to say something?
So I think I caught the tail end of Eileen, and I think want to reiterate a similar message that whilst I think some people senior in government do entirely sort of privately sort of talk about how they completely understand why there's a sort of skill shortage and the need for high-skilled migration, sort of both the public rhetoric and also the policy direction are worrying. So Tier 2, which is the main route for high-skilled migrants, sort of to come and work in the UK, it hit the cap for the last 2 months running for the first time, which meant that the salary threshold you need to actually qualify for a Tier 2 visa increases.
Right.
So I think it's usually about 20-something thousand, but in May it went up to over £40,000 because it was hitting the cap, so they had to cut people off. And in the longer term, the government's currently reviewing the whole Tier 2 system. The Migration Advisory Committee are having a look at the whole system, and I've heard sort of Home Office officials literally use the words sort of hostile environment, and sort of they're trying to sort of significantly reduce demand for skilled migration. And while yes, of course, in the long run, it'd be good to have the pipelines for our own talent, I think it could be quite damaging if these routes are shut down or significantly restricted. And yes, this will matter to tech, but I think it will matter to lots of sections of the economy.
Okay, and I mean, obviously, in a simplistic world, I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here. Someone would say, well, yes, of course, if we make it difficult, then actually, surely that incentivizes local talent coming through. But going back to Anthony's point, that actually, I thought this was financial services when I was doing that for a number of years. You had the financial services sector, and 1 mile down the road, you had lots of kids who had just saw tall buildings and had no idea what went on in those tall buildings, and so there was a massive gap. How do we fill that gap? And is apprenticeships too sort of bureaucratic? I mean, for example, I went to the Makers Academy last week. And I thought it was a fantastic project. I loved the way they were innovative. The fact that they charged, but they only charged you back once you had once you had started work, and those sort of models. Can we be encouraging more of that, or actually am I trying to sort of get sort of almost wash my hands of it as a politician? How everyone's always talking about the skill shortage and the fact that there's always a gap between people from poorer backgrounds or backgrounds with less opportunity. How do we actually really tackle this issue?
I'll just kick off on that, just to let you know, we just hired our next developer who starts with us on Monday from Makers Academy. Again, partly for that reason that it's a great opportunity. They do a great job of turning around people who have never coded before in 3 months and turning them into something employable. So yeah, that's a great initiative. I think more initiatives like that would be fantastic. For me, I think the word apprenticeship is tainted with the negative stigmas. It's associated with that blue-collar industry, trades, etc. And I wonder if there's an opportunity here for almost like a rebrand of apprenticeships, digital apprenticeships, apprenticeships, whatever you might want to call them. But yeah, thinking about how that might work, and I would certainly be interested in that. But you're right, the bureaucracy around it. In a previous life, I've looked at taking on apprenticeships, and the financial incentives are kind of there, but again, the red tape.
Okay, so we had the connectivity, we had the skills issue, and then the third issue is clearly just someone who just champions a sector. So more round tables, more sort of missions where we take a lot of you guys out to champion us and champion yourselves. Does that kind of cover it? Do you think in many ways? Those are 3 things. Go on.
I think that there was somebody touched at the beginning on this idea of trade missions and kind of focus groups, etc. So we were fortunate enough to be included on Boris Johnson's trade mission to New York with the UKTI, and for a startup like ours, that was an invaluable experience. It kind of opened up doors. It gave us really invaluable PR and such like. The thing I would add to that, I think would be really useful, is trying to help open up the whole procurement process of local government. There's nothing more powerful to a startup than a prestigious contract or a trial with a department of a public sector body, that kind of endorsement that comes with that. So if there was some kind of formalized scheme or a greater encouragement of using tech startups and making those companies that way, that would be a great thing, I think.
We've got some experience of it, and it's been particularly painful. I'll be honest, and it is overly bureaucratic and stacked against a startup or scale-up business.
Right. Okay. So what we need to do is look. I mean, we get this all the time. Actually, it's not just tech. It's actually just small businesses in general that we find that the large companies have got. They're big enough to have compliance departments and people who spend all their time applying for these sort of stuff. Whereas, for you guys, it's taken time away from revenue earning. And actually, it's just a general pitch, and we find this. I find this at the EU all the time, where big companies come and lobby me for more regulation, and I realise that the regulation is to help them, help them close out the small guys, because they can afford it. They've got compliance officers, they've got lobbyists, they've got all these guys, and it's a perpetual problem. It's not just the tech sector. And actually, I think we've got to be, as politicians, more creative in how we cut through that.
To give you an example, so Squirrel is on the Wire Unlimited program, which is run by Telefonica, and what's beautiful about this program is Telefonica opens up its doors to a load of startups and gives them the opportunity to kind of work with a bigger organization with whatever their product happens to be. And I wonder if there's an opportunity there to do something similar with the public sector, with the GLA, etc.
Okay, well, I can look at that. And one thing that no one mentioned, but others have mentioned to me, interesting, is just office space. Is that an issue for any of you guys? I mean, is that a concern for you? I mean, are we running out of office space in London, and or are you just being innovative enough to sort of go beyond? I mean, and Emmanuel's already gone from East London to West London. Is that really a problem? And you'll find space. Who wants to
I think a lot of people do bring this up. The reason I didn't bring it up is because it's sort of I think it's slightly distracting, and I don't actually think it's a genuine issue. I mean, I know it would be nice if rents were cheaper and there was more space, but coming from the Bay Area or Silicon Valley, office space has never been affordable there, nor is it affordable in New York or many other tech hubs. I think it's actually a consequence of a thriving, well-developed ecosystem, and so to kind of complain about it is a bit rich. I do think maybe, if the government was interested in being supportive, you could do things like maybe vouchers or encourage more co-working spaces or try and do things that might help very early stage teams get on the, I guess, the quote commercial property ladder. But generally, I think griping about the cost of office space is sort of complaining about why you're in such a strong ecosystem and why you have access to talent and all the things that London affords you. So that's why I didn't bring it up.
Okay.
I would echo that. I think it's a non-issue. I think the bigger issue though is the cost of housing for people working in the sector, and that's a growing challenge. And I don't have any idea on how to fix it, but I think that's a growing threat for a number of businesses, that people just can't afford to live and work in London.
Right. Okay. No, I mean, it's one of the things that I'm going to be looking at, and one of the ways we're looking at that is actually the supply of land. And what we find is it's not actually just private developers who are land banking is often accused. Actually, Lord Adonis, who's a Labour lord, wrote an article the other day about public sector land banking. The TfL, the NHS, local authorities, the GLA itself has quite a lot of land. That's how we release that land. And that's going to be one of the huge challenges. And plus, there's this fantastic project called Create Streets that's helping people to design higher density buildings. So you can redevelop existing estates, but higher density, but better designed. The problem is sometimes is that local authorities go in or the housing association goes in and redesigns it without proper consultation, and then you suddenly get pushback. So it's those sort of issues that I'm looking at. So issues we talked about today: connectivity, the fact that talent's clearly an issue, and so. If someone said to you, and I know I get asked this question all the time, and I get frustrated by it, but if someone said to you, pick one issue that you should be championing, which one would it be?
I think if I were going to answer that, I would say I would probably, sorry to be a broken record, but there are too many issues for you to focus on just one. If you want to support the entire ecosystem, I would try and leverage the position of Mayor of London, use the resources that are available and have been set up and spent the last few years getting up to speed. And so then I would say keep working through London and Partners. I know it sounds like I'm an advert for them. I don't do that. I just see, having witnessed what they do and the difference that they've made, say, in the last 12 months versus maybe even 2-3 years ago, and in terms of the quality of what they deliver over something like UKTI on a national level, it is quality. It is good. They do get it. And I do think they represent startups very well.
Okay, great.
It's possible you to focus on one thing. So
I think I would come back to talent. I think talent is the overarching challenge. And I don't think it's just down to the tech sector. I speak to a lot of small and medium-sized business owners, and that's their number one challenge over all other challenges.
Okay, thanks, Anthony. Emmanuel and Guy.
Yeah, I would come in on the talent front. I think the biggest opportunity in terms of what could realistically be championed by the mayor is probably this idea of apprenticeship, so expanding apprenticeships, or getting younger people. There's a whole load of talent out there leaving school and getting them involved in the digital sector as an alternative way of filling that gap. Yes, it's a longer term project, but I think it's something that would be within your powers to kind of develop.
Great. And Guy?
And finally, I guess I'm going to be breaking record as well and sort of go back to my sort of championing and listening, because I think that's your way into the rest of it. As in, because if you're doing that, then you'll hear from the founders about the talent and the local broadband issues, and it also, I think, would sort of help inform like a views to better regulation and sort of support for the sharing economy, or sort of innovative approaches on sort of cabs and Uber, which we won't get into now, but. Or sort of releasing more open data as a city, and sort of using more sort of smart cities, sort of data analytics in policy. I think being sort of proud of London as a tech hub, and sort of listening to the best of the brightest within it, of which I'm certainly not, but is the way to sort of to keep London great on tech.
Well, great. Well, look, guys, I want to thank all of you for giving up your time today to sort of share your issues with me. I know I've met a number of you in person when we're talking about the digital single market and some of the barriers out there in Europe to creating that digital single market. But what I take away from today was clearly, actually looking at this issue of connectivity and better coordination to make sure there's better connectivity. The whole issue of talent, right from the range of people from outside the EU and that bureaucracy and the barriers that are being put up, but right through to actually, and something very close to my heart personally, is how do we help those kids from less privileged backgrounds who have less opportunity, give them the opportunity to come into the tech sector, so they're not just staring across the water at a tall building or a tech sector, they're actually part of it. They're also benefiting but contributing to London's leadership in tech. And some of the other issues about continue to be an advocate for the sector, not being ashamed to be an advocate, and actually, and continuously listening to you, but making sure that around tables, other discussions where it's not only me listening to you, but others listening to you to really understand it. And finally, I suppose the other issue which was very interesting, but it's double-edged sword, is the whole issue of public procurement and getting some public sector contracts while remaining innovative. So can I thank you all very much? You've all got my details. If you haven't, you can find them. If you can't find them, then you're not using your tech properly. And drop me an email. Feel free to follow up anytime. I'm really happy to talk to all of you. And thank you very much. I really appreciate your time today. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.